Hi, this is Terry Keating in Chicago. Bonzillion on YouTube. Listen, I'm going to make, this is my PAISTE, RANT, and RAVE video. I did it for Ludwig because I finally just got to get it out there. They don't listen to me when I call them. I know I'm the nut job from Chicago. Let's send the padded wagon out there and take them away to Cymbal Land. Anyway, PAISTE. Sick of dropping emails and calling you. I've been doing it for 20 years. You guys are kind of like, that's terrific, Tara. Wow, those are great ideas. Alright, so here's the plan. If you remember, but back in 1994 and 5 and 6 and all the time I said, hey, bring back the giant beats. It'd be a great idea. You know, a lot of these kids, they love Led Zeppelin. Vintage is coming back in. You know, these giant beat cymbals, bring them back, 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 bring them back. Finally, 10 years later, you're like, oh, you know, some Dorsey has asked about those too. We'll make some. Anyway, so you brought them back. Okay. I'm not an I told you so guy, but I told you so. Alright. 602s. Told you back in 1994. I called. I said, listen, I think you guys are cutting your nose off to spite your face. I think, you know, I know all this crap from Zildjian and Sabian at the time. Younger guys don't remember this, but the whole cast versus non-cast BS that went on. I know finally you guys made the new proprietary alloy in '89. God love you, great alloy. But I think you guys, honestly, I think it was kind of like, you know what, Zildjian and Sabian, we're not even going to use your alloy anymore. And I can understand that. I think you cut your nose off to spite your face. I told you that then. I said at the very least just pare down the 602 line because you had every symbol under the sun. If you looked in the catalog, you had like 13-inch rides. You know what I mean? 13-inch ride model. Just pare it down. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I will say this. It's great you brought them back. Giant Beats and 602s. And I actually think on the whole, the Giant Beats are better cymbals than the originals. On the whole. 602s, they're marvelous. I gotta tell you, that 20-inch medium ride is a crash. I mean, it's a ride too, but I like it as a crash. But anyway, so you brought back the 602s. I'm not an I told you so guy, but I told you so. Alright, so what I'm gonna say now, which I've been yapping about actually for years, and Zildjian, guess what? Zildjian in the spring, in the next couple months, is introducing it. A 23-inch ride. I said that a jillion times. You know why? Because guys love a 22, and they want a bigger cymbal, but 24 is really can be, you know, when you go from, if you're playing a 24 for a long time to go to a 22, it's kind of like, oh! It's kind of like driving a SUV and then suddenly being in like a Corolla. You're like, oh, boy, I'm low to the ground here. Do you know what I'm saying? So that extra, the 2 inches is a big deal. Just ask my wife. Anyway, but listen. 23-inch cymbal. Zildjian already now beat you to the punch, but do it anyway. Definitely do it in the 602s. I would say, well, definitely do it in the 2002s and the 602s. Do it across the board, because a 23-inch cymbal, it's, again, I mean, an inch really does. It makes a big difference. I mean, it does. So, but also, too, and I'm sure this has been I mean, I know you guys, you know, there's tons of people on the staff and everybody has brain in their head, but half-inch increments in hi-hats. And I'm not saying you got to go 12 and a half, 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 and a half. But I think a 14 and a half would be a great size, because for hi-hats, too, you know, if you've been playing, a lot of guys, you've been playing 15-inch hi-hats forever, and you go down to 14s, it's kind of like, oh, wow, these sounds tiny, you know. So half-inch increments. Make a 14 and a half, maybe even a 15 and a half, because, you know, it's the vogue now. You know, all the hipsters are playing bigger cymbals now, 24s. Again, that's why I say the 23, you know. Bigger hats, now 16-inch hats are the craze. Maybe bring in 16s on the 602s as well, because God, you know, I think you used to make them. But anyway, you could bring in 14 and a half, maybe 15 and a half. I would prioritize 14 and a half because, you know, 15 and a half, you might not sell as many. But anyway, but consider half-inch increments. I know it's a big deal. You might say, oh my God, we already have so much stuff. Come on, you guys have so many lines and there's so many different things. What's a 14 and a half inch and a 15-inch cymbal, hi-hat cymbal gonna, what difference is gonna make? Do it. Because in 6 months, I don't want to say, when Zildjian does it, I don't want to say, I told you so. So, also too, the other thing I've been yapping about since 05, since the Giant Beats, you first reissued them. I'm going to take more of my hyperactive juice. Slightly heavier weights in the Giant Beats. Came out, I love Andrew to death. I know I'm this psycho from Chicago. What can you do? Somebody's got to be a psycho from Chicago. I said, Andrew, they're great, you know, but they're a little on the thinner side. You know, like I've said for jillions years, it's a lot of guys, of course, I'm sure I've said for a jillion years, the original Giant Beats, the weights varied. So if you had an 18, some of them would be like if I remember, like maybe 1,250 grams. Other ones would be almost 1,500 grams. A huge variation there. Much looser than, let's say, the difference between a bunch of 18-inch 2002 crash models. Do you know what I'm saying? So just I'd consider the current ones medium thins. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd make another batch a little heavier called medium heavies. Although I would stay away from the medium heavy moniker because it might turn people off. You know what I mean? So figure out something else. Either make the heavier ones just regular giant beats and then call the current ones now medium thins. And then, of course, you guys made the thins. I'm not sure why. Well, I should say, you know, who am I? You made the thins. I've actually heard them. They're great cymbals, but they're really thin. And a lot of younger guys might buy them to play in something to play in rock, and I don't know what your breakage ratio is on those bad boys. But again, back to giant beats real fast. A quick aside. I was shocked at kind of in a certain way how jazzy the reissue giant beats sounded. In fact, the minute I heard them at the Chicago Drum Show, which was in '05, which was one of the first places they were really sort of showing off, one of them, I was like, wow, there's a lot of jazz guys who are going to love these. So I posted all over Cymbalholic.com and some of these other chat, you know, the old Harry Kang and that one was probably gone, probably DFO or whatever, that how actually, you know, how great they sounded and actually a little better than the originals, but also too, you know, for jazz. I mean, they weren't necessarily, obviously not dark and trashy, but they're some of the best cymbals you make, in my opinion. So God love you for bringing them back. Told you so. All right. So make a medium heavy if you can. That's my advice. These things are my advice, okay? 23-inch cymbals. Zildjian has already done it. You know, I've been yapping about it forever. Half-inch extra weights on the hi-hats if you can. I'd say 14.5 would be your primary, maybe 15.5. I think it's a great idea. Somebody there at the, you know, Hand or Hands, Chevy Chase said is bucking for a promotion. Listen to him at the PAISTE table. Do it. 14.5, 15.5. Again, heaviers in the giant beat land. And what else did I say? 23-inch, okay? So you got to do it. I'm telling you, it's the smart thing to do. There was one other thing though too. Oh yes, I would seriously consider making, and I've told you this a jillion times too. And you can check the email stash at PAISTE if you're in there. What's up? Sound Edge giant beat hats, especially in 15-inch size. Because if you remember, when you made the original Sound Edge hats, were just called Sound Edge. They were by default 602. But a lot of guys don't understand. Sound Edge hats, the original 602 Sound Edge hats, are very delicate cymbals. And the lathing is very fine. Like what you'd see on, well, kind of like the giant beat lathing. Although I think it's a little finer than the giant beat lathing. But a very fine lathing. And they're very thin, delicate cymbals, and that's what gives them the sound, especially the 15s. Anyway, so my point is, if you could make a giant beat Sound Edge, they would be almost an apples-to-apples comparison of original Formula 602 Sound Edge, except just B8 alloy instead of B20. Or you could also do I hate to say it, but sort of like an a la Zildjian, early 80s, mid-80s, or not, I forget when they came out. When you did the KZ, they did the KZ combo. You know, you get the, what did they used to do? I think they had a K top with a Z bottom. You could also say, all right, people, what we're going to do is we're going to take a giant beat top and pair it with a 2002 Sound Edge bottom. You could do that too, in pre-factory match pairs or whatever. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. And then that's it. So that's what I'm going to say. It's my rant, although I'm not really ranting, but I just need some document to say, I told you so.